So hello and welcome back to A Sort of Young Person's Guide to Prog Rock. So today we are continuing the Flaming Phoenix era of prog rock with 3 mid-70s Yes albums, Tales from Topographic Oceans, Relayer, and Going for the One. And because I am trying to highlight the beauty of prog in an accessible manner, we are going to focus on 4 songs this week. We have got Revealing Science of God off of Tales, Gates of Delirium off of Relayer, and Wondrous Stories and Awaken off of Going for the One. So this era is admittedly controversial, even amongst Yes fans, and is indeed littered with some low points, but to me, the high points are the most Yes-ish Yes ever were, so I love them all dearly. So with that all said, it is only right that I am joined today by Yesperts, Brian Gann.
Hello.
And Ryan Robison.
Hello, Ian.
Hello, Ryan. In addition, we found a local ne'er-do-well and are administering Clockwork Orange-style retraining on him. So here, with his eyes and his ears held wide open, Rufus Daw. Hello, Rufus.
Someone help me.
No, there will be no help until the end of this. So, any first thoughts on Yes, on this era? We'll start with you, Brian.
It's interesting. Every band has their classic era, and then I think inevitably has an album that represents a different direction, for better or worse. So it's interesting to group 3 albums all together, because obviously they have a lot of similarities to both the previous era, but they do also both fit into a more avant-garde, a bit maybe a less rockish and maybe a bit more symphonic sound of this era. And it's easy to get lost. There are parts I like, but also parts that are quite forgettable. But I don't think there's anything that makes me heavily dislike them either.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would say this is definitely more of a grab bag era than their previous 3 classic albums, but with the exception of maybe a song or 2, this is a pretty nice era.
I think I may have used this metaphor before, but if I think about what's going on in the automotive world at the time, it's actually known as the malaise era. Everything is underpowered, gets terrible mileage.
Okay.
Everything is just some shade of taupe, brown, and tan. Okay.
Just the given up era.
Kind of, yeah, before, inspiration would strike again, but you needed to wait another 5 years.
Okay.
And I think it's Yes chasing some kind of glory that we obviously had with Yes album, Fragile, Close to the Edge, and trying to take it farther in a direction that I don't know if any of them were really clear on. And then you obviously see the fracturing that happens. Obviously, Bill Bruford leaves. There's there's no literal drama, but
yep.
But it's a time of transition, and it's not a smooth one. That's not to say that there aren't some shiny bits that are fun, but overall, yeah, it's a time of transition. It's an awkward adolescence before they hit the 80s.
Okay, I like all of those metaphors.
That was a big old mixed bag of
metaphors, but that's what we're here for.
Well, it's interesting you call that the malaise era, because I feel like the malaise era is sort of the decline. And I don't know if this is a decline of Yes, but they're going arguably quite confidently in a new direction. But is it what we classic fans of Yes want? There are those strange people that are the later fans of Yes, the Generators versus the Troopers.
Yep.
But are there any revealing science, or are there any deliriums, or is this an era of Yes is what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is 100% an era of Yes. I mean, I guess hence why I've grouped these 3 albums, and I would also include the subsequent 2 albums after this. So I'd say this mid-70s era is definitely an era where they get intense, and I guess it's various experiments based on what they had done really on Close to the Edge. And then they just wiped the slate clean for the 80s, I think.
I mean, to be honest, until preparing for this episode, I hadn't listened to any of these albums in years and years and years. I may have only listened to some of these albums once, ever. And again, I don't have any hugely negative feelings about them. It's just, I just forget about them sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say, as we'll go through, each album at a time, I think the stories behind them are so interesting, I can forget how uneven some of the albums are at times. But, well, we'll get to each when we get there. So with all of that, having listened to these 4 songs, did you have any highlights from them?
It's pretty fun. It's very interesting to listen to. In my brain, I have an idea of what Yes sounds like from earlier works. But I think my general thoughts about the tracks that we go through today are not necessarily highlights. I don't think I liked a lot of it. I think that's...
Oh, boy.
Well, I mean, I don't... Okay, no, that's not fair. I did really actually enjoy listening to it, but again, it's kind of struggling with the length of songs. You know, for Gates of Delirium, I found myself very happily accepting of the Yes zone. But with stuff like, I think it was Awaken, I wasn't quite vibing with it. I wasn't ready to enter. I didn't want to knock on the door, you know?
Okay.
So, a mixed bag. Highlights, I guess, just it's more Yes excellence, and there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, there's a lot of things right with that. I think I have to be in the right brain zone, you know.
Yeah,
the right
it is
mood.
intense. It is intense.
I actually think there's highlights in all of them, but it's...
Oh, okay.
I think it's challenging, though, because I might say I like 3 minutes of Revealing Science of God, but then there's 14 or 15 minutes of forgettable stuff. So do I truly like the song if I only like 25% of it or so? It's tough to say.
Yeah.
It's almost like they got a little drunk on power after Close to the Edge, being like, we made the perfect 20-minute song. And then they said, we're a 20-minute song band now. But it's, even for Yes, it's an extraordinary feat to pull off a coherent, enjoyable 20-minute song, and now we're just drowning in them in this era.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think the only moment that stands out to me is the opening of The Revealing Science of God, because we rock so briefly,
yeah,
and it's one of those things where you're like, all right, here we go. You know, there's some promise here, and then I was listening to it again today, and I was thinking to myself, oh, this is just like any kind of athletic endurance event. You might be familiar with the saying, well, you can't win in the first mile of the marathon or what have you, but you can certainly lose. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, like a long bike race. They can't keep pedaling this fast for this long. This is going to run out of steam.
The peloton is crumbling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's about to feel like they're pedaling through peanut butter very soon.
Yeah, no, I completely concur. And we'll get into that in depth, but I'm glad you as well enjoyed the first parts of Revealing Science. So without further ado, let us commence our journey of Mid-70s Yes, starting with 1973's Tales from Topographic Oceans. So when we last left Yes, they had just finished Fragile in 1971 and Close to the Edge in 1972. These albums have the classic lineup of Steve Howe on guitar, Chris Squire on bass, Bill Bruford on the drums, Rick Wakeman on the keyboard, and the singer and primary songwriter John Anderson. So both of these albums did very well, and Yes won all sorts of accolades and did financially well and critically well and all that sort of stuff. But Bill Bruford, the drummer, was done and left for King Crimson, a journey we will discuss next week. But fortunately, Yes were then joined by John Lennon's drummer, Alan White, who would join them for 1973's Tales from Topographic Oceans. So, the backstory. John had read in the footnotes of Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda about the Shastric scriptures, which apparently explain all of life. And a fun little side fact, the book was given to him by Jamie Muir, the percussionist of King Crimson. So anyways, John and Steve would flesh out the arc of the album, the 4 songs, in a series of candlelit writing sessions in a hotel somewhere. And though this album, Tales from Topographic Oceans, would in fact do very, very well commercially, its subsequent reputation, infamy, controversy, whatever, would come from the fact that it is in fact, at the end of the day, even in retrospective, 4 ponderous jams over the course of 4 sides of 2 LPs. So as I was saying at the top there, this album is based on the 4 Shastras of the Hindu scriptures. And I know what you're all saying. What exactly is a Shastra? So Shastra is a Sanskrit word meaning ology, like biology, geology, that type of thing. And these theoretically are just texts about various parts of life. Again, geology, biology, architecture, and then of course the gods and stuff. So they're divided into 4 basic types of literature. So the Shruti, that which is heard, are rituals, philosophy, closest thing to the scriptures. Smriti, that which is remembered, the epics, the oral traditions, which include the famous texts Mahabharata and Ramayana, and the Puranas, which are ancient collections of allegorical literature about heroes and gods and such. Finally, the Tantras, which apparently was structured as a dialogue between the gods, but basically this is the collection of ritual practices. So I think for this album, we are dealing with the revealing science of God as the Shruti, remembering, high the memory, as the Smriti, brackets that which is remembered, Purana for ancients, giants under the sun, and then finally ritual, the Tantras. So that all being said, all of this crazy lore makes me want to love this album, and then I actually listen to it, and it's just, it's fine. But today, we are starting with Revealing Science of God, and more importantly, we are starting with the Roger Dean album cover. So the album cover is just probably one of their best, like probably top 2 some of their best. It's got fish swimming through an ancient landscape. It's got the Nazca lines, ancient stone circles, Chichen Itza. I think it has that air of ancient mystery that I do believe John and Steve were trying to capture in the music.
You know, interesting. Obviously, Roger Dean was one of the missing pieces, along with Rick Wakeman, to make Yes in its most classic lineup. And I think Tales and Relayer are maybe 2 of the best Roger Dean covers. I mean, it's funny to think one of the very, very few criticisms I have of Close to the Edge is the cover, which means there's not much else to negatively talk about. But you have the boring green cover. It is a beautiful interior Roger Dean painting, but man, Tales and especially Relayer might be my favorite of all of them, actually. Absolutely gorgeous.
No, I think, so this adds an air of ancient mystery, and Relayer adds a kind of just a more traditional fantasy style mystery, but yeah, both of them are just, unbelievable.
The oceans in question here, are these from the same world as the Fragile cover?
Whoa, that's deep.
And I don't mean to introduce some idea of the Elias cinematic universe, but
yeah, I gotta be honest, I don't know, and I've never thought about it, but now you got me thinking here. I thought Fragile was a different world that exploded, whereas this is obviously the world we live on because it has things that are on Earth.
Things that are recognizable as earthly creatures.
So
I think you're right.
Yeah, I say it's one of their best.
P literally had quite a bit more room to work with as far as the giant vinyl gatefold that makes up this double album.
Yeah, I guess that is a point, that this does fold into the full double-sided thing.
He literally has a larger canvas to work with.
And he makes use of it. It's great.
No, it is a highlight and very false advertising.
Yeah. The other thing that got kicked off in this era is Roger Dean and his brother started designing these kind of Cirque du Soleil, ooky spooky, groovy stage sets. So they covered up the amp stacks and they put a weird alien thing above the drum kit. Yeah, I just love it. And they'll continue this basically, I think, until they're going for the One tour. So it adds another, in the live sense as well, a visual element to Yes.
Isn't this era of Yes when there was a moment where they had some crazy contraptions, like they had pods they emerged from, they got stuck in that isn't Spinal Tap actually that element of Spinal Tap based off this era of Yes?
As in where they have the weird little the little glass eggs.
Yes.
And I don't know, Rick Wakeman got stuck in one.
Yeah, it was Tails. Yeah, Tails. It was they had the cocoons or the pods they emerged from.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, as with all of this stuff, my God, I want to have been there. This era also produces Yes songs, their acclaimed live album that I think we also both like. So I think, like, both music-wise and visually, they're at the top of their game here. So we arrive at the first song, Revealing Science of God. I do think this song does actually have the energy and excitement to sustain its 20-minute runtime. I absolutely adore the beginning chant. I think it is an unusual way to start a song, but it's a powerful way to start this song. I think the song in general has kind of a pretty good momentum, but I do get lost, maybe in a good way, but I don't think it has quite the structured momentum of Close to the Edge. And certainly the rest of the songs on this album don't sustain the clarity or momentum of this song even slightly.
Because at that point, that is the first recorded, like, hey, everybody, welcome Alan White, right?
Yeah, that's the first of Alan White.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking, because, man, what an entrance to make. And then I wonder if he knew what he was getting into, or if he was thinking, no, I want this. This is the band I want to join.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he honestly, he served with distinction. I mean, also, to be fair, like, if your last album was Fragile and then Close to the Edge, you are thinking, like, wow, as a drummer, what a fun type of music to play. So
sure.
I was going to say, it sure beats what he had to do for 90125. So that all in the future.
I'm sure there was enough of Chris's coke to go around
to make that whole event
to get him through.
Exciting. So actually, just real quick on Alan White's drumming, it's funny that he joins for this album, as you say, their weird kind of cosmic extended masterpiece, when he is such a good rock drummer, and he can obviously go toe-to-toe with them. Like, he's virtuosic in the extreme, and he picked up the Bill Bruford songs with no problem. And I guess on that point, it's often almost cliche within the prog community that Bill Bruford was the jazz drummer and Alan White was their stadium, ready for primetime drummer. But I do think that's actually true. And re-listening to the Bill Bruford parts on, Fragile and Close to the Edge, they're so subtle. There's so much detail in how he, picks out the cymbal bits and the drums, and there's a lot of, really, really, really fine brushstrokes, basically. And Alan White, though he can play, again, all the crazy time changes and all that sort of, as I say, virtuosic stuff, he has a really, really kind of muscular drum style, and he's got, big drum rolls, almost frankly, like a Keith Moon type of thing. So anyways, I'm glad he's here, and I think between him and Chris Squire, their playing really helps to sustain the momentum that the song is building.
It sure does. And like I said, they come charging out of the gate. That chant at the beginning is just, it's Essence of John.
Yep.
And it comes in with the big synth riff. Alan comes in pounding the drums, and you've got a good driving song structure. And then, not to overly Robert Christgau things, but I had this moment several times listening to this song, in the headphones. In this case, I'm finishing up laundry, and I realize I completely have lost track of where I am, and I have this moment like, oh, you guys are still here.
Yeah. It's God.
is this collective mood that comes up in my oh, you're still playing.
Chris Squire was behind me the whole time. Yeah,
it kind of is though, and that's the feeling I got.
No, I'm totally with that. I think these 20-minute long prog songs, they are best in scenarios where you are just doing this one mundane thing, and the song could take you somewhere else.
Yeah.
It can bring your brain away from the bullshit that you're doing, and you can go into yes land, and it's wonderful. And then you forget what you're doing, and then it's done, and then right, sweet, that was fantastic. It was a good use of my 20 minutes.
Back on, I was in a cosmic world.
Yeah.
Again, you're making me feel good about this.
Yeah.
And none of it's bad. It's very inoffensive. Yeah. Maybe I will go on record to say, maybe as some of the most inoffensive prog can be, if we're thinking about the proggiest of the prog. It's
prog Muzak.
It goes down smooth.
Yeah.
The Muzak comparison. It's like it is a little bit like a Muzak version of what
Of Close to the Edge. Yeah. Oh, dear.
So what's interesting about this era, to tack on to what I said earlier, it is a bit more symphonic, but it's interesting. There's a lot of rises and falls in this song, and maybe arguably there's one too many rises at the end. It seems like the song is kind of trailing out.
Yeah.
And there are, you can still hear like the loud bass coming through. The chant, I agree, is really good, and I think fits in with the scriptural themes that you were talking, or scriptural.
Yeah.
However, I can only wonder if they had broken this song up in some way, either separate tracks or at least given us little chapter notes where we can dissect each part in the same way we can do with like Close to the Edge or Starship Trooper or something like that. Would we feel differently about this? Because to me, there are distinct parts, but I couldn't really pinpoint where they begin or end. I wonder if I just feel differently if it was in chapters in some way.
Yeah, I think the thing you actually had mentioned there about the excessive amounts of rises and falls. So Close to the Edge is a pretty straight build. Then we have the third section, which is soft, and then we build straight to the end. This song, Revealing Science of God, about every 30 or so seconds, maybe even a minute at the most, that you're doing a new part. And so you are right that unlike Starship Trooper, where you can be like, yeah, there's the 3 obvious bits, or, And You and I, where I'd say there's like maybe 4 obvious bits. I think this one is a truly 20-minute song. And besides the chanting at the bookends, I know all of the parts of the song when they're happening. But I couldn't tell you when they happen, even now, having just listened to this track like 50 times. And I like them all. They kind of just wash over me. But again, you're right. You lose your place.
In like rhythm games like DDR or something, there's parts where you think the song's over and then you relax and then, oh shit, there's like one more beat and you screw it up. Imagine if this, like there'd be so many times you'd be like fully like, okay, it is over. And then, let's come back.
Just kidding.
Thank God the song is so slow. I think you could catch up. But yes, DDR, the least selling game of all time.
I feel like they use it in like a prison camp or something. Just like,
it would be so slow until then you'd have like a Rick Wakeman solo and like
oh God. Oh man, I think it's just there's so many bits of the song that I absolutely love.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about that. Tell us about what you love and where it works for you.
Where it worked for me. So I will preempt all of this with an amazing Rick Wakeman quote. This album has lots of great melodies, but no great songs. So, everything you've all said, yes, fine. This song is the closest to being a coherent, dynamic piece. And I think for me, the coherence comes from the lyrics. Obviously, we start with the chant. I've already told you guys, I love the chant. For all my Silmarilla nerds out there, it has the feeling of Tolkien, when he was talking about the gods at the beginning of his universe, sing the universe into existence. And that's what the beginning chants kind of conjure up for me. Then we explode with that amazing organ intro. And again, it's just like a perfect blending of building chant to we're rocking. Then I will admit it's about 15 minutes of just, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And I will defend them on 2 levels here. The first is the lyrics. Reading more into what the shruti are, I get the feeling that I did more research than John ever did. That is to say, I think he did capture, as I said, the kind of beginning of the universe, but then it's like, look at, God's green earth and all the cosmic magic, and then he makes a powerful point about how man has destroyed this. And, the most obvious line is, let them rape the forest. But I think there's actually a more subtle line in there. So what happened to the wonders we once knew so well? Did we forget what happened? Surely we can tell. I again think he's playing with here's these cosmic moments, and then here's mankind fudging it up. And even saying, getting over wars we do not need. But the other thing I think really saves this song, and I think the whole album, the sonic palette is really expansive on this album. So Chris Squire's like wah-wah bass is massive. Alan White, maybe less so on this song, but more broadly, gets to actually play around with a lot of different rhythms and percussion. Rick Wakeman, even though he's asleep for the whole album, still brings a bunch of different kind of sonic color palettes. And Steve Howe tries out a new thing each and every verse. And, you know, that is a wonderful thing, even though the song kind of has these repetitions. You do hear the sonic color palette grow, so I don't think it's that static of a song. So anyways, for all those reasons, love it.
Ooh. I agree. I think it's a lovely little journey. You know, there's enough interesting motifs musically, but then also like what they're doing, like the chanting, moving into the sort of synth piano, etc. Those transitions are quite contrasting, and they definitely keep you they keep you listening, basically.
Actually, that is a good point. Yeah, there's enough like diversity of different clips and bits, so contrasting's a good word.
Yeah, it's not like they're just playing a different riff. They're moving the entire musical landscape every 30 seconds, and then even bigger changes, as you say, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, etc.
Yeah, no, I like that. It makes me feel good about the song. So the other thing I guess I love about this is I actually do love the lyrics. I mean, the chant lyrics are my favorite, but I do love all of the lyrics of this song.
It's another one of John's straightforward lyrics that are, even though they're hidden behind his choice of vocabulary, you know, he has this classic theme where he's always trying to tie the metaphysical to the real, and he's very open-minded towards it, and it has some obvious little inclusions about, you know, young Christians and old people and what they feel, and we're all part of a collective consciousness, and everyone's just figuring it out. So that's a classic John theme. He hits on multiple times. There is a Song Facts interview. Carl Weiser interviews John, and I'll paraphrase what John's saying here, but after I read this, I was like, okay, this makes more sense than it ever has, because John talks about how his lyrics make sense to him after the fact.
Yep.
So he's painting with words, but he also does this thing that's kind of like, I guess the best analogy I can think of is rhyming slang, like Cockney rhyming slang. And you're substituting certain words with others.
Yep.
And he explains, and he's not talking about the lyrics to this song, but it obviously applies to this one. He uses the example of Starship Trooper, but he talks about how he wanted to talk about guardian angels, but that seemed kind of trite and, you know, so he just calls them Sister Bluebird instead, but he just substitutes things, and then it's just enough to make something straightforward a little bit obtuse, and it's fun. But the message is not lost.
And I think that's kind of, again, the Da Vinci Code, where you can sift through it a little bit. Where you can sift through it and try and get the secret meaning behind the lyrics. And I mean, legitimately, and as we touched on in the intro, you know, all of these songs are in essence relatable to something. There is some concept that is discernible throughout this. I don't know if I discerned it.
Well.
But I was going to say, again, for this song, I think at least thinking of each line like a koan, maybe that's the whole point. Is like, let me meditate
on... That's a lot of koans.
Let me meditate
sitting.
on 20 minutes of koans.
Isn't the point of those, it's supposed to be one at a time?
Oh, no. That's why my mind fractured after the song.
Yeah.
So it's funny that we talk about, yes, potentially trying to recreate prior albums, because John Anderson specifically talks about that they are not trying to do this.
Yeah.
He talks about, you know, a lot of our fans have come along and really lock into Yes and realize this is more to do with an experimental band, a very musical band, a very outgoing band, an adventurous band. I'm not going to do his, you know, popped out of a Bluebell voice.
Yep.
We weren't really that concerned about having a hit record. We were thankful, but it wasn't something we were going to be tied to. I didn't feel as part of the band we should ever try to make another Roundabout or make another Fragile record. That's why within a space of time, 3 years, the record companies got very upset with us because we were doing diverse music and Topographic Oceans.
That's an interesting one. I mean, so that kind of actually builds to my next point that I don't know if there's a creative momentum they couldn't avoid. Because I can't imagine any album coming after Close to the Edge except for Tales. So I think like Yes obviously did Yes album and Fragile, which are fun taster sessions, and they got the taste for that 10-minute song. And then Close to the Edge, they perfected it. And, you know, I've been saying this whole time they learned the wrong lessons from that album, but I think that's spiritually true. Like, I think it's like, yeah, if you had done Close to the Edge, and it's not just one of Yes's best songs, it's one of my favorite songs of all time. Again, as I said it somewhere probably in my life, you know, I want 4 Close to the Edges now, and be careful what you wish for. This is when Elmo wished for Christmas every day. His life was a never-ending nightmare.
Oh. It really is, though. And I know we'll get onto this, but they double down on this and those learning the wrong lessons. Yeah. The next quote from this interview, John says, Gates of Delirium, obviously talking about Relayer now, the record company didn't know what to do with it, but we did because we were performing it on stage, and that was our legacy, to be able to go on stage and perform this music that would never be heard on the radio.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they succeeded.
Well, talking about this never-ending nightmare, talk about the never-ending nightmare, though. Imagine if you are the record executive and John and Steve are like, here's Topographic Oceans. Can you imagine just your sheer terror of,
to be fair, though,
we have to try and sell this?
Joke's on them, because it was hit number 2? Maybe even number 1? It went gold like instantly.
Well, and they're still riding that momentum, right? People are excited for the sequel. You know, we want more of that, and well, here you get.
Yeah. So I do wonder if having only John and Steve as the creative forces in this album is kind of a particular sound. Because obviously Bill Bruford had just left and Rick was on his way out. And I think in general you can hear that Rick is pretty absent from this album. And we'll hear more about that in a second. So I feel like Steve gave him little sections, like, oh, go play some keyboards here. But I don't feel the passion. So I wonder if having kind of those two admittedly forceful personalities not really in the band at this point, and then in Bill's case not in the band at all, kind of just gave John and Steve run of the place.
In other words, do you think they're not as held back now with the current lineup?
Yeah, they are truly unleashed. Like, they are unleashed, and I think I get the sense that Chris Squire was so enamored by prog, like, let's do things bigger, better, and crazier, that I think Chris Squire was like, okay, you two, let's go to town. Let's do these 20-minute songs. And then I think Rick was just like, yeah, whatever. And Alan White was just happy to play some drums.
Well, Ian, I'm sure you've heard of the story, the Curry story from Rick Wakeman.
Do tell.
So, allegedly, and I always somewhat doubt some of these stories when musicians tell them, but apparently one contributing factor to Rick's decision to leave was there's long sections when they were on tour for this album where he wouldn't do anything. And he was so bored once, he asked like a roadie to get him a curry, which I think evolved into like him leaving stage to go eat. But I think the real story is someone just brought him some food and he was eating on stage.
Yeah, I was going to say, I heard the tale as he had told the roadie, we're going to go to curry after this, and then they gave him a curry on stage. As he says, John came over and actually ate something too, so maybe it wasn't too hard feelings. But yeah, I was going to say, you can hear that, like, what would there be for Rick to do in most of these songs? So you can see that Rick had bigger and better things twinkling in his eye, because his crazy stage shows that you alluded to. So we've got Six Wives of Henry VIII coming up. We've got Myths and Legends of King Arthur. He has got a solo career to go off to go do. So that's going to be exciting for him. Then my hot take about this song is this is their Thick as a Brick.
Please do tell.
So here we go. So this whole album to me has the feeling of Jethro Tull's Thick as a Brick, which we covered a few weeks ago, where it's like little minute-long parts that just get added on like a string of pearls to this necklace. Unlike Close to the Edge, which felt like 4 or 5 distinct parts that you're like, yep, that's that bit, that's bit, blah, blah, blah. I think this just feels like, cool, we're just going to slide another like guitar solo on, time for drum break, time for the chanting, and it just slides up. So a lot of the individual bits are very pleasant. I think Thick as a Brick obviously succeeded more feeling coherent. I think this feels long and disjointed maybe, but anyways, that's my hot take. I think this is their Thick as a Brick.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. It's always hard to tell how curated these stream of consciousness songs are. Are they purposeful in their kind of chaos? I don't know, but I do see the similarities between Thick as a Brick and this. It's just very prog, and I think it's not an aspect of prog that prior to being on this podcast I really appreciated, but I think it clearly is actually one of the fundamental aspects of maybe not prog as a whole, but maybe like a subgenre of prog if you really want to go that deep. But there are certainly many prog songs out there that do this, and
just keep adding.
They just keep going, and there's nothing wrong with it necessarily, although you do end up with 20-minute songs sometimes.
Some have said the song is still going on now. They're still recording this album.
It's still, yeah.
It's interesting because Thick as a Brick is so self-aware. It's Ian Anderson's almost in-joke with his tongue firmly in his cheek the whole time about prog.
Yeah.
Whereas this, John and Steve are not trying to be funny here.
They're
They
trying
are
to teach us.
deeply committed to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Despite the alleged connections to Hindu texts, I'm not really sure like what they're going for here. It's like they've been noodling on some ideas and this is what came out of it. It doesn't quite feel like a fully cohesive album, and I can't necessarily justify that. It's just there's something that just doesn't work. I can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, I guess we'll be touching on 2 more long songs in the course of this episode, so maybe we'll come to some conclusions at the end as to what maketh a long song a pleasurable song. Because these really do just wash over me, but they don't feel cohesive as songs.
Ian, I'm going to predict it now. We're not going to solve it by the end of this podcast. Spoiler, so you can just stop listening now, audience. Like, we're not going to solve it. Let's just...
Maybe by the end of this podcast series, though, maybe we'll have solved the...
You just have to listen to 75 episodes, and then you'll then...
Like, oh my god, the songs have to be good. That was the answer the whole time.
Staring us right in the face.
Whew. So, that was Revealing Science of God from 1973's Tales from Topographic Oceans. So join us next week as we finish our discussion of Mid-70s Yes. I want to thank my guests, Rufus, Brian, and Ryan.
Thank you, Ian.
My pleasure.